Variances occur when your financial expectations do not match your financial reality. That's a natural course of life, and that naturally happens in all businesses. The question, though, to consider is when should you investigate those variances? To do so, to investigate every single variation will be very time consuming, your head will explode, and you don't actually have all that time to spend on it. So the short answer is you shouldn't investigate all variances. However, in this video, I'm going to explain those factors you need to take on board to know when you should investigate a variance in your business. Hi folks, my name is Mahmood. I'm a business, finance coach and accountant of over 28 years, helping thousands of businesses. Check out the show note link here to find out what I can do for you and your business. Let's crack on with the video. Financial variances are a natural course of life. If you can predict the future with 100% certainty, congratulations, you are going to do very well on the lottery. It's impossible to predict with 100% clarity and certainty what the future in our business will look like. However, our financial story plan, which is the bedrock of all financial controls, tells us in financial terms what our business journey will look like, what the level of income will be, what we're going to be spending, more importantly, how much cash we're going to generate and how much profit our business is looking to make. Variances will occur. So what I'm interested to talk to you about is when do you investigate those variances? And there are 5 key factors to take on board. Now, before we look at those 5 factors, let me present some terminology for you. In the world of management, in the world of financial control, in the world of business, there is a system called management by exception. Doesn't that sound wonderful? Now, management by exception is not about us sitting on our recliners, sitting on our settees and doing nothing. It says when you have a plan, an expectation, what is likely to happen in your business, a financial story plan, which is my preferred term, when it goes according to that plan, when everything goes smoothly, then fine, you can relatively speaking relax. There's nothing to do in that context. However, when things do deviate from those expectations, either favourably or the other way, adverse as they might call it, when your profit is going to decline, then that's when you should set up, take note and investigate. Now, in that system of management by exception, we can go further and then take on board 5 key points as to knowing when we should investigate a variance. The investigation, by the way, folks, is crucial because if we don't figure out what is going on and why it's occurring, we can't put it right. And before we know it, things have gone out of control and we're going to be losing more money than we would like. So the first thing is in terms of the size. How big is that variance? Now, big is a contextual thing. So a £500 overspend on a budget line, whether it's materials, freelancers, staff, advertising, may be a big deal for a majority of very small micro businesses. In the context of a business that's generating hundreds of thousands of pounds worth of turnover, £500, relatively speaking, is a drop in the ocean. Now, to me and you, personally speaking, £500 is a big deal. But in the context of how much you're generating by turnover, how much you're generating and spending in terms of costs, look at it in that context. Now, I would suggest you set what's called a control limit. So it could be a pound, sterling, dollar, yen, whatever currency of your choice is. So you may say, when the budget fluctuations are more than, for argument's sake, £500, that is a trigger point that we should investigate. Some people like to set percentages. So you might say when it's plus or minus 5%, I'm obsessed with 5 at the moment, plus or minus 5%, that's the point we should trigger and investigate. Now, treat these things carefully. A big percentage on a small number, so if your budget is £100 and you overspend by 20, that's a 20% fluctuation. But that's not necessarily worthwhile to investigate. So the second factor, having dealt with how big is that variance and you set your own limits, we then think about the controllability. What is it we as business owners, as senior management, can actually do to influence the outcome? So for example, certain types of costs are fixed. So things like rent, the payroll, the salary costs, maybe fixed subscriptions that we're committed to for a period of time. In the short term, there's not a great deal we can do to influence the spend on those items. So therefore, we may actually organise our financial plan, our financial story, to have those costs, those non-controllable items in a separate area. We shouldn't ignore them, but those are things we shouldn't be spending a great deal of attention for if we do get fluctuations. We're not saying to ignore them, but effectively we can't influence them in the short term. Likewise, there may be material prices, commodities that are outside of control that are subject to market forces, and they're going to be quite volatile. And therefore, those spikes, whether it's through currency control, whether it's through just suppliers putting their prices up, again, we shouldn't ignore it, but in the short term, management action is going to be quite negligible. By all means, don't ignore it, but put it to one side. So focus on those things that you can influence and control in the short term. Typically, they may be variable type costs. Typically, they will be things that we can influence the outcome on. So we talked about how big that variation is. We've talked about what we can control and influence. The next thing is look at the pattern. If that variance that's occurred is a one-off incident and is not likely to occur again, so we've looked at past trends and it's an abnormality, certainly take note of it, but perhaps that tells us that's not worthwhile to actually dive in too much and to find out what's occurring. But again, keep an eye on it, monitor it. Factor number 4 is the actual financial story that you're looking at as a reference point. So what is your financial story plan, budget in old-fashioned terms? Is it reliable? Is it accurate? Are you monitoring it? Was it prepared several months ago in a different set of circumstances? And those circumstances don't exist anymore. So we need to make sure that whatever we're comparing our reality to, our actuals to, that the reference point, the financial story, is in itself something that's reliable, something that's robust, and something that represents where we are now. If it's not, then perhaps we need to revisit that plan. We need to revisit our financial story. We need to update it and reflect reality as it appears to us over the next few months, few years. So if your budget is unreliable, if it's wishy-washy, if it's literally a finger in the air job, then effectively you're not really looking at the right documents. Well, one of the last things to consider is that in all things that we take in terms of action in our business, there's got to be a seesaw effect. And what do you mean by seesaw? It's about a cost-benefit analysis. If the financial variation is quite small, quite negligible, whether it's measured in pound note terms or the impact on our business overall, we need to make sure that the cost of investigation is actually worthwhile. So if the cost of investigation are such that it's actually not financially viable and it's disproportionate, then perhaps we ought to rethink this. Now, folks, that's given us 5 good factors as to what influences whether we should investigate a variance or not. Now, let's keep things real. Little variations that we might ignore, okay, may compound into something that's going to be much bigger. So this is about where we should be focusing and where we should be spending our time on a month-by-month, week-by-week basis when we're looking at the reality of the financial impact of our decisions against where we thought we would be. So folks, I hope you found this video useful and informative. Tell me, what do you do when you investigate variances, if you investigate them at all? Be sure to check out the other videos on the I Hate Numbers YouTube channel. And thank you very much for listening. If you feel that somebody else could benefit from this video, I'd love it if you could make them aware. And until next week, folks, happy variance investigation.